Frankie, how is oneself?
Well, considering of what we had to endure and watch at the weekend, I'm not feeling too bad. And with the game looming over us, which we're going to have to sit through this week as well, I'm feeling all right considering how West Ham are at the moment.
I think I'm triggered a little bit. I think on Saturday, what triggered me on Saturday was it was almost like sort of like my fears coming true a little bit in regards to Lopetegui. However, I've got over that one to some extent, and I'm like, right, okay, let's see what he does against Brentford. And I'm saying Brentford instead of Liverpool on purpose. Let's see what he does against Brentford in Ipswich. And it's, I don't want him sacked or anything like that, but my concerns are at the forefront of my mind. However, in the last 24, 48 hours, I've been triggered. It was almost like a secondary trigger for me, and that is all these tweets going round. Because it's something that we've always had at West Ham, but I just feel like it's different this time. Because if we go back to last season, Frankie, when at the start of the season, it was almost like Sullivan was keen to push this narrative that perhaps Moyes and Steidten weren't getting on, and there was almost a division between those two. And throughout the season, this continued. However, it was almost like everybody was in agreement. Sullivan, Steidten, and Moyes all agreed that it couldn't continue as it was, and they all agreed that Moyes had the final say on transfers. It wasn't necessarily what Steidten wanted, but I think they all agreed as to what the situation was. It doesn't mean they were happy with it, but they all agreed that this is what's going on at West Ham. I think it just changed a little bit. I think in the last couple of days, we've almost seen three different sides to the story. You've had Lopetegui's mate on Twitter defending him already. Then you had Tim Steidten, an article coming out saying that Steidten warned Sullivan about Lopetegui. And this came literally 36 hours after Tim Steidten was on TNT Sports saying that he was happy with Lopetegui and he wanted Lopetegui and he ticked all the boxes. And on top of that, you now got Sullivan almost saying, no, he picked the manager as well. He wanted the manager. Then on top of that, you've always got this who signed who transfer thing going on already. Not even a month after the transfer window shut, there's almost this dissection of who signed who. And I think, quite frankly, I think some of it's lies, but we'll discuss it. But I think I've been triggered again because I dislike this more than I dislike what happened on Saturday, because we can reverse the performance and the result against Chelsea. We beat Brentford and Ipswich. I'm over that Chelsea game pretty bloody quickly, quite frankly. But this other side of it is almost a culture thing at West Ham. It's an attitude thing. It's the way that Sullivan runs the club. It's Steidten protecting his own back. And I don't like it because that's harder to overcome than 5 or 6 bad games of the season so far.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I'm maybe not as triggered as some. I just think some of what came out is kind of what we already know. The thing that I'm not, you are right in that there's this who signed who thing. That's the most frustrating of them all for me, because I thought we'd got over that. I thought that was gone. I really thought we'd just got to the stage where we had the guy who was in charge of our transfers. He signed off on everything. I thought that just those sorts of silly arguments had disappeared. So the fact that we're back involved in that again is just really annoying. It does show, though, that no matter what, the buck does stop at the top. They are going to still be the ultimate say-so. Regardless of who Tim is putting on his list, if they feel like they have deals that they want to do, they're always going to flex their power and do that. So we always knew that that's ultimately who's in charge. They love to deflect blame. We know what they like to do. Moyes was the perfect man for them because he was the easy scapegoat. He was the easy fall guy. It actually was the perfect manager for them because, they could always just allow us to, in fact, with a lot of what went on over that period of time, and while I think the obviously trophy win made everything else just go away, regardless of what else was happening at the club, it didn't matter because that just was always going to put a shine over everything else. But there were still things that we weren't doing, i.e. investing in the striker properly. There were still things that, glaringly obvious things that West Ham should do as a football club that we just wasn't doing. But they still had David Moyes as that fall guy. I think they always knew that in the back of their mind, if anything went wrong, it was very easy to allow us to vent our frustration at him and not have basically a repeat of what happened at Burnley, where we're all targeting the owners. So that was perfect for them. Look, I just, with the situation that it is at the moment and saying who wanted the manager, is Steidten ever really going to come out and say he was my sixth down on the list? He wasn't the man.
Exactly.
He may have agreed to it ultimately once the board had said, you can't have this man because too much money. This man ain't right for us. This man, whatever. It might have been the best of what he actually had to work with. That's very different to being the man that he picked. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a very
it's also possible. It's also possible that he didn't want him, sat down and had an interview with him and came out of it thinking, actually, that was quite impressive, actually. I think that guy is actually not too bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard. There's not much about what I've seen from Lopetegui so far. I mean, it was interesting, wasn't it? He said it was the style. This was the key thing for me in his interview after the match, was that he turned around and said it was the style of football that we needed. Was it? Because it wasn't the style of football that we all wanted. We all knew that he was fairly pragmatic. We all knew that he wasn't going to be this revolutionary attacking. I think we'd all come to maybe some people in the back of their minds have still hoped that the football would be more appealing and more attacking. But I think anyone who'd ever watched his teams play knew it wasn't going to be this revolutionary change of attacking football that many of us had longed for. So I don't know. That was the interesting part of his pre-match interview for me. You know, that was the style of manager that we wanted.
The other thing that I found a bit contradictory was when he said, "Oh, Steidten referred to about the fact that he had Premier League experience," and I was like, "Well, Ruben Amorim certainly didn't have that, and you were getting him on a plane and over for an interview." So it felt a little bit like Steidten was almost singing off the Sullivan hymn sheet here. It was almost like he had Sullivan's checklist in front of him and said, well, he was literally just a few words. The next reasoning for getting Lopetegui on his list would have been out of work. That was the only thing missing from the Sullivan checklist of managers. But it felt like it was almost like David Sullivan saying it rather than Tim Steidten himself. But I agree with that when he finished it up with and style of play or whatever he said. I was a bit like, but no, that's not what nobody was saying. Can we have the same again, please, but a bit better defensively? Not many people wish for that. Do you know the thing I found weird about the who signed who blame game? Now, for anyone wondering, these are off the back of various articles, but this one in particular is a tweet from Sean Whetstone, who said that a top source at West Ham had informed them that Crysencio Summerville was the only one that Tim Steidten didn't pick. So Tim Steidten was in charge, and he was the one that decided to get all the summer signings in, bar Summerville. An ex-West Ham employee went on to elaborate on that, saying the top source said that he himself, so Sullivan, picked Summerville. So it was Summerville's a Sullivan pick, according to him, and everyone else was Tim Steidten. But first of all, the thing I find weird about that is that nobody's questioning the signings, really. There's a understandable concern over, say, Fulkrug and a frustration over not getting John Duvan. That's, I think, fair. But I haven't really felt much of a demand from the fan base as to, well, who signed Wan-Bissaka, etc., like we have in the past. And it felt like for that to come out from Sullivan was a bit, well, what you've just done here is you've almost created a discussion now. You've now opened up this debate. It didn't exist pre-tweet. Now, post-tweet, it's like, oh, hang on, let's elaborate on this. Because Cannon Brady's also been in the press saying that they got Max Kilman because it was an important signing for Lopetegui, that Lopetegui really wanted Max Kilman, so they went and got him. Tim Steidten said that as well, that Lopetegui wanted Kilman, that's why I went and get him. And I guess to some extent you could argue, technically, that is Tim Steiden's pick because he's decided, actually, I'm going to go get him for Lopetegui. So it probably was Steidten that signed off on it, but was it Steiden's pick? I'm not so sure. And it just feels like Sullivan's gone into bulletproof mode. And like you said, previously, Moyes was the perfect human shield, and I think he's almost trying to suss out which one of the two out of Lopetegui and Steidten is the best human shield for this season. And funnily enough, the only player that Sullivan wanted was the one that did all right on Saturday. That's convenient, isn't it? Give it a few months and suddenly, actually, I picked that guy as well. But I just felt like Sullivan was almost answering an argument which nobody was actually having.
Yeah, I mean, he's not silly for all of Sullivan's faults. He's not a silly man. There's a reason why he is where he is. I think he felt a little bit like once Summerville come off and there was a bit of booze that he'd been taken off. The fact that Todibo is nowhere near the first team at the moment, which was a really big signing. That may start unraveling fairly soon, and maybe there will be questions that will be asked. And we had this united front. We almost had the whole, well, we just in Steidten we trust. That was kind of the phrase that was coined, and that was fine for everybody. And it's we've gone from that to like you said, he's also almost antagonizing a reaction from the fan base to get a bit angry about those signings that have been made that haven't quite worked out as quickly as they should have done. We're still really early on. We're still early days, I think. But there are some frustration. And look, the thing is, while I've said to you, I don't want to be Arsenal, I don't want to Mikel Arteta thing, we aren't seeing that many positives at the moment. It will turn quite quickly because that's how we are. And not just us, every football fan base is quite fickle with that sort of thing. And at the moment, we're not seeing any even little positives. We're not seeing, well, actually, we've looked at this and it might come good, or I can see what we're trying to do here. I don't think there's a single West Ham fan who watched what they watched on Saturday and felt, how unlucky was we? It just hasn't quite worked out, but I can see what we're trying to do. I think everyone just sat there and thought, what is it we're trying to achieve here? We're all over the shop. There's just massive glaring holes in our team. And I think what also in the back of Sullivan's mind is probably thinks, because he watches the content, he understands he gets reported on what's going on. He's ended up playing the team that kind of a lot of people were asking for. He got Summerville out there. He got Kudus and Bowen, and so we've got the front three that we've been looking for. He's dropped Souček, and Souček wasn't involved, so there was no personnel questions anymore. It was really down to Lopetegui and his tactics as to why it went so badly. And ultimately, the managerial appointment is down to the ownership. And they've come out, they've made their decision. Probably. I mean, interesting question. Yeah, if you was to say, in terms of West Ham fans, when we was linked with Lopetegui, what percentage felt he was the right for West Ham? What would your sort of opinion on that be?
I'll give you 3 different percentages. I would say I feel maybe 65% didn't want him. I'd say 30% thought it'll do. It's transitional manager. I think a lot of people thought he's maybe the guy to bridge the gap between Moyes football and Ange Postecoglou football, if you like. So one extreme there, this guy is almost in the middle. And I think maybe 5% thought this is the guy that we really need. This is the one. I felt like majority were, at best, it'll do for now.
Yeah, and I think I felt the same. I thought, and this is the thing for me, this is probably why I'm not getting as agitated as maybe some other people are at the moment, is that I always, sometimes you just know football. Sometimes it's not the actual appointment. Sometimes it isn't what happens. Sometimes it's just, that's just football. And I always felt, and I said to everybody, there has to be a point. We've just got rid of Moyes. There will be a time that everyone will get the opportunity to have that say-so of, you should have been careful what you wished for. It was always going to happen at some point. And TalkSport have already jumped on the bandwagon. They've already done a video on it and said, oh, should West Ham have stuck with Moyes? Would West Ham fans have Moyes back now? It was always going to be the case that at some point that was going to rear its head. Well, it's happened quite early on. And I think a lot of us also said, in a percentage-wise, that we probably won't see him here in more than 18 months. We always saw that would probably be Lopetegui's maximum time with West Ham. It would be a sort of 18-month thing, as you said, transitional manager, and that is what it is. But for me, the most important thing was that we would be above mid-table, stay out of trouble, and just have a season of, you know, as you say, we've got a lot of new players. We need to build upon that. We want to be seeing good things happening. We want to be seeing what we're going to see further down the line, and believing that actually this is going to all click. This is going to come together, and I can forgive a little bit of a slow start. My biggest concern is that I'm really not seeing any. Even in pre-season, I saw things that I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm just not seeing that anymore. Saturday for me was just a real big worry. And while I don't want to be that person who jumps the gun and everybody needs time and everything else, you have to be seeing something. And in all of the games that we've played so far, I've struggled. I've also seen a lot of videos and content on intensity at the weekend. And where was the intensity? Where was the desire? I actually felt we come out looking quite lively. I thought there was the right attitude from the players in the first opening period of that match. But the way they were set up to fail, we just got played through, and there was nothing that the actual personnel could do about it. So I don't know, Gio. I'm really trying to stay calm. I've always said to you, we need to give him time. And why I didn't expect us to be flying and be this top 6 side that some of the other people tipped us to be. I can't lie. You have to start looking at it. And some of the tweets that have come out have said, you know, you're rightly so, Liverpool isn't a game to be judged on, but certainly the next 2 games, Brentford and Ipswich, are going to have a big bearing on Lopetegui's future. Is that too early? Probably not. If you don't see anything really positive within those 2 games, then we've got to start asking questions.
Yeah, how long do you give it? Like, if you say, 10 games is too early, so what's 15 then? Oh, 15's enough. Okay, so what's 14? Oh, that's enough as well. Okay, what about 13? No, that's still too early. Okay, so 13 is a magic number. It's how long's a piece of string? It's a difficult thing, and everybody's got their own tipping point on this one. And I think one of the reasons I was really angry on Saturday wasn't just, I really sort of almost evaluated my own emotions at the weekend, and I think it was almost like this frustration with the decision to appoint Lopetegui in the first place, because I felt it was a bit. And the good thing about doing videos, there's archives of this. I didn't want Lopetegui. I've just shut my mouth for the last month or so because people got excited for the new season. And positivity, excitement, and hope's a good thing. The last thing they need is someone like me whinging in every video saying, well, right, it doesn't matter. You put it aside. And I'm calmed down now. Like, I don't want him sacked. I've not even considered potentially sacking Lopetegui because I'm pretty calm. I was annoyed on Saturday, but I'm still calm about the bigger picture. And I think this is why Sullivan's almost loading the bullets to the gun quite early, because I think you've got 3 gobby people here. You've got Sullivan with the old school media, which is the written press. You've got Steidten with the new media, which is the influencers and the in the knows, like Fabrizio Romano. Steidten clearly gets on with Fabrizio Romano and Plattenberg. I'm pretty certain if it starts to go really wrong and Steidten wants to throw Sullivan or Lopetegui under the bus, I'm pretty certain there'll be a tweet from one of those 2, exclusive, Tim Steidten or whatever. It'll be we believe this, and you know who it's come from. And then you've got Lopetegui, who, before he walked out of Wolves, did an exclusive interview with his mate saying, oh, yeah, it's not good at Wolves here. He laid the foundations before he walked. And you've got examples in the past. You've got Lopetegui is one of them, sacked after 14 games at Real Madrid, got sacked before the World Cup, walked out of Wolves before the start of the season. And then you look at Crystal Palace, sacked De Boer after, 4 or 5 games of the Premier League season. He went, no, we've made a mistake, get rid of him, and let's rectify this. I'm hoping they say turn it around. I don't think he's at the bottom yet. You've got to be going wrong to turn it around. But I'm hoping there's a drastic improvement against Liverpool, against Brentford, against Ipswich, and that we go into that international break comfortable in the table, given how early it is in the season. Good performances from players, because at the minute we're not really seeing too many of them, and that's something that's irritating me a little bit. But I think my frustration with the whole thing is just the way that it's 5 games in and Sullivan's already playing the media games. And that's something, it almost feels like the end of David Moyes' tenure and the end of Pellegrini, the end of Bilic, where all these things come out. I think, bloody hell, we're at that point already for Sullivan that he's having to sort of, and I just see it as him maybe realising he's possibly made a mistake in forcing Lopetegui upon Tim Steidten, bringing Lopetegui in. He's getting a little bit worried that if this goes wrong, it's his neck on the chopping block, and that Sullivan will know Steidten's generally quite popular among the fan base, and he won't like that. I don't think Sullivan won't like it. So I think he's almost just loading the bullets early, just in case something goes really wrong. And he can say, well, I told you a month ago, it's nothing to do with me. It's all of us. It's all of us. We all need to. But it's just, I don't know, frustrating. We were hoping for, while I wasn't confident the style of play would change much with Lopetegui, I was hoping for a change of attitude. I think we've got a change of how we go around transfers. I think Steidten is signing off on all the transfers. I think that is different to last season. Up until now, the relationship between Steidten and Lopetegui felt quite good. It looked like they were in sync, and there was a good dynamic going on between those two. Actually, I think Sullivan played his positive role in the summer transfer window as well. Do I think overall the window was, fantastic? No, that's why I've stayed away from phrases like West Ham won the transfer window, because I don't think we did. I don't think the striker is. I like Fulkrug. I just think it was a mistake not getting Duran. But it felt like Lopetegui, Steidten, and Sullivan were all on the same page in regards to which players to bring in, how much money to spend. They were backed. Lopetegui was backed by Tim Steidten with Max Kilman coming in, and Tim Steidten was backed by David Sullivan by being allowed to go spend 150 million. Them two, they've been backed in the transfer window. So as much as Sullivan's annoyed me, I think he did his job in the summer. Once the appointment was made, I think Sullivan did all right. He backed off and let Steidten get on with things, which is what we wanted. He's claiming he wanted Summerville. I'm not sure how true that is, but even if we just assume it was, I'd rather he wasn't involved spending 25 million, but we can't change our tune. Those that thought it was a good deal at the time can't say, well, it's now a bad deal because Sullivan picked him. It's still a good deal or not a good deal. It's the situation. I'm worried that we don't win tonight, tomorrow night against Liverpool, or win or get beat by Brentford. It's going to be a horrible, horrible atmosphere. Sullivan's fielding a lot of phone calls and emails right now regarding Lopetegui. It's only going to increase if we fail to win one of the next two. It's not good.
No, it's not. It's a real shame because we felt like, and we said all at the build-up into the new season, we were saying, finally, we're united again. We're all together. And it really did feel like you said, Sullivan was backing Lopetegui and what he needed. When Steidten was making recommendations, that was all considered. And it felt like that we did have a bit of unity. It felt like we had 3 people all working together for a change, all with the same objective, all pulling in the same direction. We hadn't had that for a little while. And I just really felt like we were going into this new season with a fresh, positive mindset. And that's why I said I was happy to be a bit patient as well, because I didn't want any sort of bumps in the road to sort of knock us off course with that, really. And it hasn't taken much, has it? Let's be honest. We've had a blooming hard start to the season. It hasn't been easy. We've had some tough home games. We've had some difficult places on the road as well. And we're already now starting to stab each other in the back and get one-upmanship and I did this and I did that. It's just not great. I would have much rather have seen all 3 of them stand together.
Yeah.
And I guess Steidten has done to some degree, coming out at the weekend and doing that. The other thing, what is he doing pre-match interviews anyway, to be perfectly honest? I'm not sure.
Do you want my honest answer on that?
Yeah.
I don't mind it. Right? I don't mind it. I don't like him leaking stuff to Romano and Plattenberg. I think that's different. The reason I don't mind Tim Steidten doing interviews and being on the pitch before the game and stuff in Germany, and he is a German director of football essentially, and you could argue that he shouldn't be bringing that culture over to a Premier League club, but I think if you're going to employ a guy that's a German, but also be cut his cloth in Germany, I think this is what you're going to get. But in Germany, the director of football / technical director / sporting director, it's essentially the same role, just different job title. The roles differ from club to club anyway. You could have director of football at Club A and director of football at Club B could have different roles depending on which club they are. But also, you could have director of football at Club A and sporting director at Club B doing the exact same thing. So it's just sort of different titles, same roles to some extent, right? But in Germany, they are seen as the face of the football club. It's not the manager, it's not the players, it's not the owners, because obviously they've got the 50+1 thing anyway. But it is the guy. So Tim Steidten's old club at Bayer Leverkusen had Simon Rolfes, who was the face of Bayer Leverkusen, and he still very much is. So when they go around lifting the trophies, he's there. He's at the front of it all. And there was an interview I listened to 2 years ago, maybe, and it was with someone that was doing that role in Germany at the time. And it wasn't at Leverkusen, it was at Cologne. And he said the reason he's in the dugout, he's in the second row of the dugout every single game. And he got asked, why are you there? Why are you on the subs bench? And he said, because I need to know exactly what the manager's doing. I need to know exactly what the assistant manager's doing. I need to know what the coaches are doing. He said, I'm responsible for everything here. I'm responsible for all of these guys. He said, so I need to know they're all doing their job. So how am I meant to know that the set piece coach is doing his job when I'm sat up in the stand? He said, I need to be down there listening to him, watching him, seeing how he communicates. He said, I'm not watching the game of football. So I'm watching my staff, essentially. That's what I'm doing. And that's why he's there. He's there to oversee the club on a day-to-day basis. Now, I appreciate an interview is not necessarily that, but he's becoming Tim Steidten has become the face of West Ham. He's tried to become the face of West Ham in the last year. He has done. That's why whenever we sign a player, there's jet pictures getting leaked with him in the signing, because he wants to be the face of West Ham. And he's up against somebody, not David Sullivan, he's up against Mark Noble. He's essentially fighting with Mark Noble to be the face of West Ham, someone who's captained the club for over a decade and played for us for 16 years. That's Tim Steidten's competitor in terms of being the recognisable guy for West Ham United. And that's what I think he's doing. I think he's just trying to be the face of West Ham. And it's something that is very, very common in the Bundesliga and in German football clubs. And I think he's just trying to make West Ham a little German, I guess.
I mean, I think that's all well and good, and it makes sense, and I understand it. But don't then undermine them and say, I picked this player for a transfer, when that's the player who's clearly... And I'll tell you what, it's a weird player to pick as well, because he hasn't done a lot so far. He may come on and look a bit bright, but there's certainly nothing to suggest that he is going to be the standout player of the transfer, or even become a regular starting West Ham player. Who's... Are
you referring to Summerville?
Summerville, yeah.
Yeah, but there's Sullivan though that said I picked him.
That's what I mean. So he's undermining the so-called face by saying, well, I picked this guy. If you're going to let the man be the face, let the man be the face. We know in business that sometimes somebody does something really good and you let somebody else take the praise for it. It doesn't matter. If they're the person who's at the front, you let them take the praise. You don't then go around and undermine them in a meeting or undermine them somewhere and go, oh, but that was me. I did that bit. You know, let the boss or the face of who's doing the meeting or whatever it is be the face. Let them take credit. Let them be whatever. You're already sniping him and cutting his legs out from underneath him with coming out with things like that. So I'm all for you. But if we're going to do it, then back it. Do you know what I mean? We can't do that thing where you then start to go, oh, well, I'm going to cut his feet out from underneath him the first opportunity I get. That isn't right. So, look, I'm with you. And sometimes I think what that can do is take pressure away from the manager, because he's the face and he's standing up there and he's giving it. Lopetegui gave his interview as well. But when you've got the man who then stands up there and says, right, we know it's not good enough, but I'm backing the manager. This is the reasons why we had him. It almost just glossed over a little bit of the fact that we're not having the best start. And it was like, okay, well, we didn't. And while we used to get communication sort of third party through media, you never really know. It's nice for someone at the club to actually be coming out and saying it as it is. I'm agreeing with you. I think he's absolutely singing off David Sullivan's hymn sheet there. And he's been basically briefed as to what to say and what not to say. I do agree with that. But at least we have got some communication coming out, you know, explaining certain situations. So, like you said, I'm not totally against it, but I just feel you either have to be all in or you're not, because otherwise you're going to end up with this, you did this, you did that, and it will soon crumble. And like you said, we've got three very, very strong characters. We've got, Lopetegui, who isn't afraid to walk away from situations and stick two fingers up at you. We've got Sullivan, who's the most precious man in the world, as we know. And then we've also got Tim Steidten in there, who just believes in himself like you couldn't believe. He's just a real confidence man who totally believes in his ability and what he does. So it was always going to be a bit of a temperamental mix. I felt it was always like it wouldn't take a lot. If you put a match in that, it would spark very quickly. So I think we need to start, like you said, start some positivity somewhere as quickly as possible, because it could really blow up and ignite quite quickly, I feel, if things continue the way they are.
Yeah, I'm still unsure how much I like Steidten doing the German thing as part of his job, doing like the interview, but if you're going to employ a German director of football, expect him to do German director of football things. Don't be surprised when he does those things. It's what you're going to get. It's a bit like if you go purchase a footballer who's got a really bad record of getting red cards. Don't be surprised if he gets sent off in a game of football. Just like when we signed Marko Natovic and he, pissed on Stoke to navigate his move to West Ham. You could not complain when he did it to us in order to get his move to China. I'm sorry, you can't have that. That's what you've brought in. You brought in a guy that you knew would do that. So when he does it, when you swim with sharks, don't complain when you get bitten. And I think that's kind of the thing with Steidten here. When you're going to bring him in, don't complain when he does German things.
No, but also we know as well that if they didn't want him to be doing the German things, it would be put a stop to very quickly. We know how much the club have control over communications, who speaks to who speaks when and what. We know the club have a real tight grip on that, more than I've ever known with any other football club. So, if the board and Sullivan didn't want him doing the things that he's doing at the moment, believe me, he wouldn't be doing them. So
yeah, that's very fair. The thing, do you know when we were saying we think he was singing off Sullivan's hymn sheet in regards to Lopetegui? I don't mind that either. If Sullivan's gone to his director of football and said, we need a new manager. Here's the 5 bullet points here's the criteria. I don't know who you need to go get. I don't know who it is we have to get, but this was the criteria. And Steiden's gone, all right, yes, boss, and gone away and gone, no, I'd prefer he didn't have that. But it just shows that possibly that Steiden's in sync with Sullivan, that he's listening to, like you said, his boss at the end of the day. Strange situation we're in, Frankie. It's hard to keep up with it all, actually. You wake up on Tuesday morning and then it's like, bang, tweets about who signed which player. Like, bloody, I didn't even know this was a discussion. I think the worst thing for me is right now, there's more to come. This is just the start of the storm. And if we lose against Liverpool, I think it might just remain the way it is. I think there'll be an understanding of quite a difficult game. It's not, you can't hit Lopetegui too much for that stick. However, I think Brentford did we can't. If we were to lose that game as well, I think Monday is going to be mayhem and sort of the media world, if you like. I think Sullivan will be singing like a canary to his sources. I wouldn't be surprised if Steidten singing to his, and also I wouldn't be surprised if a certain Spanish journalist tweeting something out about West Ham and Lopetegui as well. But he's annoyed me. I've left him out of this video on purpose.
Ipswich, Geo. Ipswich. Do you feel that, because you've just explained the situation there and how if we lost to Brentford, do you see Ipswich at home after that being the perfect opportunity to turn it around? Or is it the sort of game that if you lose that one as well, then you're in big trouble? I would almost have rathered it been an Everton or someone that, do you know what I mean, is been around the Premier League. Ipswich, the problem is it goes to, you absolutely have to win this football match. There's so much pressure on that. But
it also, if people did want him sacked and the West Ham were debating him, you hit the international break and arguably it becomes a good time to sack him immediately after Ipswich. Is right, look, we've got a 2-week break now. Buys us a bit of time to get this guy out the door and get somebody else in before the next league game. But I think it's a good fixture because I think it's one that you could say, well, you should be winning that. But also, if you can't win that, then we've got serious problems here. Because I think so far, if you look at it black and white, just the results, ignore performances for a minute, then it's not that bad, right? We lost at home to Villa, Chelsea, Man City. It's not the end of the world. Won away to Palace and drew away to Fulham. All in all, the results isolated aren't that bad. It's I think they're fair. I think that's what you'd expect to some extent. But when you then include everything else, however, I feel like Brentford away and Ipswich at home are the first two fixtures where you think, well, actually, no, that's not games I expect to be losing. Brentford's a difficult place, but I still expect a draw at least. And Ipswich at home, I expect nothing other than a win. So I think the games so far in the league, I think you can make excuses for not winning those matches. But the next two in the league, I'm not sure you can make excuses for not picking up 4 points. I think that's a fair expectation for Brentford away and Ipswich at home. And I think if, say, we had Arsenal away and Liverpool at home in the league, we go into the international break with 4 points on the board, but you'd be able to say, yeah, but look at the fixtures. What else do you expect? Actually, I'm kind of glad there's a couple of fixtures in there where you could go, no, you're not getting away with this. 4 points is bad. Like, look at those fixtures. You should be winning one of those. So I actually think it's a good fixture for him. I mean, it might be what he needs to hopefully get a win under his belt, because football mood is dictated by short-termism, but it's also dictated by your previous result. And if you win going into an international break, it maybe just chills everybody out a little bit, and it dictates the narrative coming out about West Ham. But if you lose that one, it's going to be a long 2 weeks, that international break, because you know what's going to be happening. Knives are sharpened, and I suggest Steidten walks around looking like that, looking over his back, because someone's waiting to just... But anyway, shall we leave it there, my friend?
Yeah, let's do that.
Liverpool tomorrow, just quickly. Are we winning?
I had no hope. It was totally written off. I've got a few very close Liverpool friends, one who works for me and one who I see every day, and the pair of them are licking their lips at the match. They know that it should be an easy win for them, and you know, there shouldn't be any issues with that one. So even as soon as the draw come out, it was just so like, oh, really? And all along, but I still can't help myself getting a bit of optimism from somewhere.
I love that.
From your video with Gonzo and the fact that you spoke to the Liverpool guy. I didn't see your Liverpool one yet. I'm 10 minutes into it, but the one with Gonzo, and you said that the Liverpool man said it's, you know, you either go out now or you go on and win the thing. Let's just hope that it's not on their priority list. If it was still Klopp, I almost feel like it might have been low on their list. I just feel like new manager, they always want their first trophy. It just seems to me like that's an easy, you know, let's just try and get that one in the cabinet, because then Slot's got his first trophy and we can build upon that. So I feel like they might take it a little bit more seriously than maybe we think. And then you read out their potential rotated team, and the amount of players that they've got in there are still very, very good players. So I'm still going to go in with some hope. I'm still going to believe that we can turn up and do the job, because at the beginning of the season, this was what I thought was our European run of this year. I thought the League Cup, let's go and have a run. Let's try and get to go to Wembley. So I'm still going to cling on to that, mate. And yeah, you never know.
I love that. Right then, if you guys at home have enjoyed it, please do drop a like on it, subscribe to Hammer's Chat. Myself and Frankie will be back later on this week. Actually, it's a bonus podcast week because of the Liverpool game. So we'll be back Thursday or Friday discussing the Liverpool game, possibly talking about the West Ham landscape and looking ahead to the Brentford game as well. And we'll also be recording our fantasy football video, which I'm looking forward to this week. I had a good weekend, Frankie. I'm looking forward to recording it this time.
Good.
But anyway, thank you very much for joining in, and we'll catch you in a bit.